Things are really difficult out there in the world right now. We're going to have to keep our social distance from each other. Many of us are going to have to self-isolate, potentially for a considerable period of time. Here are 7 strategies to help you get through that. As an academic researcher, I spend a lot of my time working on my own, often up here in the attic, and I've done that for years. So I wanted to share with you some of my experience of how that goes and some things you can do. I've also been reading up on the behavioural science. So for instance, Paul Dolan's book, Happiness by Design. And there are various strategies that we know about that can help promote happiness even when your environment isn't the greatest. Now look, I'm really aware that everyone's experience is going to be different, everyone's circumstances are different. Maybe you are working from home, maybe you are in isolation because you're ill, maybe you are on your own, maybe you are part of a large household which has to isolate together. So there is no one thing that we can all do that will be right for everyone. Rather, I wanted to talk through some strategies, some ways of thinking about time spent in isolation that I think will help a lot of people. Okay, so let's dive in and take a look. Number 1, create your space. One of the most difficult things of sharing a space with other people is you just start getting those niggly feelings and it becomes really hard to use that space. What? I'm doing a video, just hang on a sec. Mark, what are you doing in the attic? I'm trying to shoot a video. Yeah, but Monday's my day to use the attic. Yeah, but today's Wednesday. It hasn't been Monday for 2 days.
You're joking.
Do I look like I'm joking? All right, sort your hair out. Okay, so you can deal with this by dividing up the space available to you. Perhaps you say that one person will take one room to work in, another person will work in another room, and then you'll get back together for communal meals, for watching telly at night or whatever. So one important factor here to bear in mind, if you're working from home and you're setting up, say, on the kitchen table, it's really important that when you've finished your day of work, you clear that away. Zone out your space. Say, the dining table between 9 and 4 or whatever is my work desk, and at the end of that, you clear that away and it becomes a communal area again. Strategy number 2, plan out your time. One thing I found about working from home in isolation is it's really easy for those boundaries between work and relaxation and your free time and sleep. These all start to blur and merge, and that's really bad for your well-being. You have to plan out your day. You have to say, okay, I'm getting up at this time, I'm going to start work. At this time, I'm going to take myself off to the dining room or the broom cupboard or whatever, and that's where I'm going to work. And then I'm going to stop work and I'm going to take a lunch hour and I'm going to go out in the garden and get some nature time. I'm going to go back to work and then I'm going to take a break and call my relatives. I'm going to call my friends. And then at 5 o'clock, I'm going to stop, play a game together. We're going to watch TV together. We're going to eat together. Maintaining that regular rhythm of life and making sure that you factor in enough time to go into nature, go into your garden, call your family, call your friends. That stuff is really important. Strategy number 3, balance, pleasure and purpose. In Paul Dolan's book, he talks about how happiness is about the right mix of pleasure and purpose. Purpose involves doing an activity that may not on the surface of it be immediately pleasurable, but you find a sense of meaning, purpose in doing it. And it's important that in the way that you plan out the day, you include a mix of both of those things, both pleasure and purpose. Think about how you would organise a normal day in the office. You don't just work all the time 9 to 6 or whatever. You take a break, you go to the coffee room, you talk to your colleagues, you have a joke. It's easy to miss out on that stuff if you are isolating at home. When you plan your day, make sure you include fun stuff interspersed throughout your work. Don't spend all day watching TV. Do a range of activities where you get that blend of pleasure and purpose. When you are doing an activity, give it your full attention. That is a great way of making the time pass. But as soon as your attention starts to waver, don't force it. Switch to something else. If you've been fully engaged in a purposeful activity, switch to a pleasurable activity. And again, when your attention in that pleasurable activity starts to waver, switch back to a purposeful activity. Strategy number 4, social interaction. Lack of social interaction can be really bad for our well-being, and obviously if you are in isolation, social interaction can be really hard. So make sure you include time every day to call your family, call your friends, Skype with them, FaceTime with them, see their faces. One thing I like to do when I've spent time away from my partner is we'll each put the same film on at the same time and we'll FaceTime each other and we'll kind of talk about the film. Okay, it's not as good as being there, but it's still important that you have those social interactions. And obviously, I guess it goes without saying, calling your family, calling your friends is really important at this time, especially if they're down, especially if they're having trouble, if they're elderly, if they're vulnerable. One of the best things you can do is call them, check on them, make sure they're okay. You might want to back off from social media. Spending time on Facebook or Twitter has been shown to negatively affect people's happiness. If you think it's important for you to engage with those issues, you can call your MP, you can write to the government, you can sign a petition, you can still do all that stuff, but put a limit on the amount of time you spend on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Strategy number 5, do something creative. One of the reasons self-isolation over a period can be so difficult is because the feeling of wasted time, you can combat that by doing something creative just for yourself. Write a short story, paint a picture, write a song, play some music, sing together. It really doesn't matter what it is. Any kind of activity like this is going to lift up your mood. I've spent a huge amount of my professional life over the last 20 years pretty much on my own in a room, just reading and researching and writing. I don't look back on that as wasted time because I can look back on it and think, well, I wrote that book. So in doing something creative, you help to combat this feeling of wasted time. Don't analyze what you're doing too much. Don't self-assess. Throw yourself into it. It doesn't matter whether it comes out good or bad. It's the process that's the important thing. Strategy number 6, learn a new skill. So this is tying into the previous strategy of doing something creative. Maybe you've always wanted to learn to play the guitar or learn to paint or whatever. If you're finding yourself isolated at home with time on your hands, now's a great time to learn one of those skills. If you want to learn how to bake a cake or play the guitar or to paint or to garden or whatever, go on YouTube, find some tutorials, just throw yourself into it. Again, it doesn't matter how well you do. It doesn't matter whether by your period of self-isolation you have become a really proficient painter or guitarist or not. Probably not. It doesn't matter. It's the process that counts. In learning something new, you are firing up all the good feelings in your body. You're going to lift up your mood. Strategy number 7, commit to an outcome. When you are spending lots of time on your own, after a certain period, all of this can feel very futile. Oh, why am I doing this? It's completely pointless. Thinking like that really brings your mood down. One way of combating that is to commit with somebody else to an outcome. This is something Paul Dolan talks about in his book. He gives the example of somebody who wants to read more but finds it hard to keep on schedule. His advice is commit to an outcome by signing up to a book group. Obviously, in self-isolation, you aren't going to be going to the book club physically, but you can sign up to an online book club. Similarly, you and your friends, you might set up a challenge together. Who can write the best short story this week? Who can write a song this week? And at the end of the week, you're going to exchange them. You're going to read them to each other. You're going to play the song to each other and have a laugh together over FaceTime. Committing to do something like that keeps you on track. It gives you a sense of purpose. All of this stuff lifts up your mood and helps you deal with the problems of self-isolation. These are the strategies that, from my experience, have helped me to cope with spending a lot of time on my own. They're not all going to be for everyone, but I hope there's something in there that's going to help you to deal with whatever's coming in the future. Please keep yourself safe. Think about how you can keep others safe. Call your elderly relatives. Wash your hands. I'm sure there's loads of stuff that I've missed out. Leave me a comment. Tell me how you're going to cope with this. If you've been through this already, tell me how you did cope with it. Okay, that's it for today. Please stay safe. I'll see you next time.